Welcome to today's episode of my Feelings Over Tea podcast. I am your host, Dr. NaKaisha Tolbert Banks, and I am truly excited to be here with you all today for this episode. It's just me today, which sometimes can be good. I love having guests on the show, and I've had some amazing guests and got some new ones coming, some awesome content that I hope will bless your soul and just get you into a space of thinking and just embracing what's being shared. So, I wanted to take some time for today's episode to talk about navigating transitions and finding grace in grief. And this topic is one that really kind of hits home for me and probably for many of you that are listening, because grief is that thing that, yeah, it's like you don't quite know where grief is. And it's like sometimes it's around the corner, sometimes it's like right in front of your face. You never know when grief is going to show up, but it's one of those things that at some point in time in your life, you will face grief. And today, I want to explore life's ever changing landscape about navigating through challenges and growth, because that's if you're grieving long enough, or if you get to a place where you do grieve, growth is on the other side of that grief. So I just want to have this really heartfelt conversation with you today and dive into this topic. Not just grief isn't just the kind of thing that happens after the loss of a loved one. And I think that's the thing that I want to share about, because I think when people think of grief, a lot of times that it comes like after a death, like a death of a loved one or someone really close and special to you. But grief can also come from losing relationships, routine. So if you're used to things being a certain way and it's no longer that way anymore, sometimes we grieve the thing that has changed or is different. We can grieve identities, homes, and even phases of life. And I'll get into this more as we start in on this show. So let's just dive into this show, into this episode. I'm excited to share some things with you that I've experienced, that I've learned, that I've helped other people over time navigate. And I just want to talk about the beauty of this. So let's get into it right here and right now.
Welcome to my Feelings Over Tea podcast, where experts and everyday people will sip tea and spill the tea about all things life and mental health related. So grab yourself a cup of tea and join me, your host, Dr. NaKaisha Tolbert Banks, for hot topics, helping you to cut through the muck of life and live your life well in my Feelings Over Tea podcast, right here and right now.
All right, everyone. So, welcome to today's episode of my Feelings Over Tea podcast. I am your host, Dr. NaKaisha, and today I just wanted to take some time to just share something that's been kind of in me and around me. And I journaled some things recently and thought, this will make a good topic. So let's dive into this, talking about navigating transitions and finding grace in grief. And I know somebody is probably like, finding grace in grief is kind of like a peanut butter sandwich and tomato soup. what is say the hamburger without the ham, like things that don't go together. But there truly is grace in grief, and we have to afford ourselves grace as we're going through our grieving process, and however that may look, because it does look different for every person. So before I dive in here, let's ground ourselves with this powerful quote by Maya Angelou. She says, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." Again, she says, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." And this beautiful quote reminds us that every transition, no matter how painful, can lead to transformation. All right. So when we think about a butterfly, it goes through a lot of changes and transitions. And, if we think about the butterfly and if it rushed the process or it got frustrated with the process, right? That transition that it goes through, we're not going to have butterflies because it has to go through these different phases and be patient with that process in order to emerge as a butterfly. So when you think about your life and how you've been navigating your life over, I don't know, a period of time, maybe it's been a tough period of time for you, a difficult time, a season of transition. When you think about that, I want you to remember this butterfly and the different phases that it's had to go through. And we're not going to say that it's easy. I've not been a butterfly in my life. So, but the beauty of watching, what we see in that transitional stage for the butterfly can teach us a lot about our own lives and what our process can look like. We probably feel, closed off and isolated and in a dark space, but knowing that that's part of the process for that butterfly to emerge. So think about that when you're thinking about your life and the space that you're in. What's what do I have to look forward to? Is there beauty in this process, right? You may have to dig really deep on that, but really take some time to think about that. I want to take a minute to talk about grief. And when we hear this word grief, again, like I said, we often kind of think about death or the physical loss of someone. But grief is really complex. And I was having a conversation recently with someone about, well, someone's, because I've been talking a lot about grief and what that looks like. But we talked about the complexity of it and that it really does look different for every person. And just thinking about what honestly does grief mean. And again, like I said, it's complex, but it can also be this emotional response to any kind of loss. So you can grieve the loss of the ending of a relationship or a love, romantic relationship. It can be the loss of a friendship. You can define your own relationship and what that means to you. You can grieve a lifestyle that you left behind, for many individuals who are merging together with their partner and maybe they're going to live together or get married, so you're transitioning from one lifestyle to another. I went through that when my husband and I became one, and how I may have lived, I had this other person now to consider as far as my lifestyle and how I was used to doing things, and the same for him. So lifestyles can be many things, when you think about transitions in employment. Sometimes people say, yeah, well, I had to take a pay cut or I took a pay cut in order to do this thing over here, which may ultimately impact your lifestyle. But again, how are you looking at that transition? Are you looking at it as a negative thing and allowing that particular thing, that relationship ending, that lifestyle changing? Are you looking at that as a death sentence, maybe? Or is there a different perspective that you can take about that particular transition? Even as we age, as individuals, because we're getting older and not younger, maybe young in our mind and our perceptions in the ways in which we live our lives. But chronologically, we're aging, from 8 to 10 to 12 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 90 to 100. But as we age, we might grieve past versions of ourselves or the phases of life that we leave behind as we grow. And so I'm blessed to, one, have been around and still am around so many elders in my community who impart so much wisdom. But I also, have had the opportunity to work with so many seniors and, just to sit up under them and listen to them and glean from them about their lives and the losses and the things that they've experienced and how that really has impacted them and grown them in their life. And I love just kind of pulling this wisdom from them because it really does give you access to how they've navigated it, right? This is somebody that's gone before me that has been there, done that, as they say. So grief can look, it has many different patterns. If you think of like a mosaic, I guess that's what comes to mind for me. There's so many different patterns and shades and colors depending upon how it's created. And we really just have to be patient with ourselves in how we choose to navigate our grief journey. Grief is not reserved for the monumental losses. It can be really quiet and touch literally every aspect of our lives. So, acknowledging and validating the feelings that we have in that grief process or on our grief journey is the first step towards healing. So, the importance, I think, when we talk about grief, I want to talk about how we love ourselves and give ourselves grace during transitions because I think about this over the years that I'm different in how I care for myself in the grief journey. So different things that we grieve in life and grief has this way of making us feel lost and fragile. And sometimes I guess we could even say that it can make us feel unworthy. So that's why it's essential to practice self-love and grace, especially during transitions. The biggest thing is just to be patient with yourself and know that it's okay to take a step back to feel what you're feeling without judgment. I think it's interesting sometimes that I'll say to people, what did you just say to yourself? Oh my gosh, I'm just so dumb, or this is, I can't believe I did this or did that. And I ask people, now, if you were in a room full of people and you go to introduce yourself, would you say, for example, hi, my name is Rock, and I'm dumb, and I don't give myself grace, and I don't love myself, and I treat myself really poorly? And people are like, oh my God, heavens, no. No, I wouldn't introduce myself to people that way. So if you wouldn't introduce yourself to people that way, then why would you speak to yourself in that way? Because you hear yourself. You hear what you're saying, you hear your thoughts, which lead to feelings. And so those feelings are now what become real and they impact how you move. So show yourself the same compassion that you'd show a dear friend, is what I tell people. Create space to rest. I'm going to say that again. Create space to rest because rest is so critical. Reflect and nurture your mental health and physical well being. Another way that we can navigate these transitions and show ourselves love and grace is by embracing small joys, even if they feel fleeting. But remind yourself that healing is not a linear process, and it's okay to stumble along the way. So, healing is not linear. So, the small things that show up, the small things that bring you joy, embrace them. Loving yourself during your grief journey is not selfish. Someone said that to me recently. They said, I had to give myself grace in knowing that me taking care of myself is okay and that it isn't selfish because I had always been taught in my family, and we were talking about culture, right? And so, culturally, for this individual, they were saying that I've always been taught to take care of everyone else and everything else. And then what was left, then I could take care of me. And the interesting thing, so many times, and I've been there myself, that you go and you do, and you go and you do, and you go and you do, and you go and you do. And when that list gets done or those things get done, you feel depleted. Like I have nothing else to give. Right. And usually it's just for myself because I'm the last person to be cared for. And so there needs to be a shift. Number one, a shift in mindset, but also this shift in maybe if I flip this and reverse it. Shout out to Missy, Misdemeanor Elliott. Flip it and reverse it. Put myself on top to say, let me take care of myself first and then expend my energy in other arenas. We can get to a place to where we are saying like it is okay for me to embrace me. And this isn't a selfish act. It's actually, quite frankly, a loving act and me showing myself love. So we have to think about loving ourselves during these times and being able to say, I deserve to heal. I deserve to grow. I deserve to move forward and then do it. Yeah. How's that sitting with you? Like, what's coming up for you now? I'm just going to pause here for a second for you to just take a moment to think about what's coming up for you. Is there a particular instance, incident, thing that's happened in your life? Are you currently, navigating this grief journey and you're like, oh, that thing? Or, yes, I need to do more of this. I need to show myself more love. I need to love myself more. I need to rest. You know, that's that rest is so critical, especially when we're talking about healing and growing and moving forward. So, when we talk about grief, I may be sharing with you with some people who know Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and some of you may not. You can definitely look her up online. She is the one who introduced the 5 stages of grief. And these 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Again, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And not everyone will experience these stages in the same way or in the same order, but they are helpful in understanding grief and different stages that you may experience when we're talking about whatever this loss might entail. And people are like, well, does it absolutely go in this order? And I'm like, no, doesn't always go in this order, but you may find yourself definitely in denial that I can't believe that this actually happened. I'm shocked. I'm in disbelief. I can't believe this. And some people are in denial for a really long time. And that is because they cannot accept, which is kind of far down the line, but they haven't been able to accept or even just wrap their brain around what has happened. Some people say, oh, I'm angry. Yes, I'm angry. I've been there for a really long time and I'm still angry. And then other people bargain. The what ifs and if only, right? What if I would have done this? Or if I could just only have this person, back for a day or a few hours, or if I would have done this then, right? I just wish if I would give anything for this person to be here, to be back, or to have this relationship, or to be back in this community that I no longer reside in, or whatever the case may be. And then when we talk about depression, there's an element of sadness or withdrawal or feelings of hopelessness that shows up and sets in. And then there's acceptance, which is the fifth stage. And the acceptance is a place of understanding where you may feel like you're beginning to understand what has taken place, wrapping your brain around it. Maybe you're connecting now with the feeling of this particular thing that you're grieving, and you're able to move forward in that acceptance phase. So, looking at one of the stages, which is depression, grief can deeply impact our mental health, and it can lead to anxiety, depression, or even physical symptoms when we think about grief, like fatigue. Some people experience sleep disturbances. Some people experience issues with eating, whether they're eating too much or too little. And the one thing that I will say, because yes, while I am a therapist and I'm licensed, this podcast and this episode is not for you to use as any type of diagnosis. It's always, always, always critical and important for you to seek out support through your own physician, licensed counselor of some sort, wherever you are in your community, but to also seek support in whatever that looks like. So maybe it's through primary care physician. You may have support groups in your community. You may have a loved one that you feel comfortable with in sharing where you're at and what's going on. You might find your own therapist, or you may have some type of religious or faith leader who can help you to navigate this journey that you're on. Just know that you don't have to do it alone. And there's lots of resources that can be accessed within your community. So think about accessing those to support you. I always like to think of how do we navigate difficult situations with any type of hope. And I've been talking a lot lately, it seems like, about having the faith of a mustard seed. And if you know the size of a mustard seed, it is so tiny. So if I were to take one right now and drop it on your floor, wherever you are, and say, find that mustard seed, Unless you've got like a magnifying glass and you're super close to the ground and you saw exactly where I dropped it, you're probably going to have a very difficult time finding that mustard seed because it's super duper tiny. And as I'm a woman of faith, that mustard seed is the amount of faith that we are to have, that God says that we should have in life, the faith of a mustard seed. And so I guess I just want to instill a little bit of hope for those of you that are listening and you're on your grief journey and you're feeling like, I don't know what to do now, right? I don't know what's next. I don't know how I'm going to navigate where I am. Grief reminds us of our capacity to love, to care deeply, and to grow. And I want to pause there for a second and just kind of share with you something that I heard recently. Well, not recently, it's been a while ago, but it was brought back to my remembrance recently. Let me say that. Grief reminds us of how much we truly loved and or cared about if we're talking about a person, right? When you think about how deeply you grieve over the death of a loved one, it just shows you the beauty in that is that it shows you how much you truly cared for that person. And I remember the first time I heard that, I thought that that was so beautiful because I've never thought of it in that way. Grief was just grief, right? It hurt. I'm tired of crying. I'm snotting and crying everywhere. I don't want to do this no more. My eyes are puffy. I'm too cute to just continuously be crying. And I just want this grieving process to be over, right? But never did it dawn on me that you're crying and you have these tears and you have these real emotions and you're feeling all of this because you're truly grieving the loss of this person, but you love that person so deeply that this shows you how great that love was that you had for that person, how deeply you cared for them. And it changed my perspective. I was just like, wow, never thought of it that way. So while the pain can be overwhelming, it also really and truly offers us an opportunity to connect with our inner strength, to rebuild, and then to reimagine what's possible because we lose that in grief sometimes, right? Because maybe you're in grief for so long and you're on that journey for so long that you do lose hope, but we can reimagine what is possible when we get to that point. Transitions are a part of life. And I know that we've talked about that and now we're just talking about navigating transitions with hope. And because we know that they're a part of life, they can be messy and they can be painful, but they can also lead to incredible growth. So I just want to like remind you to be gentle with yourself and trust that the storm will pass and that a brighter, more peaceful season lies ahead because it does. Another scripture says that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And so, for anyone that needs this encouragement, faith of a mustard seed, and the weeping is temporary. And I like to think that joy is permanent. I mean, it will come and it will continuously come. So weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So be in remembrance of that as you navigate your journey. So, like other episodes that I've done, I want to just offer you a few moments of just meditation for grief and releasing today. So just settle in, take a moment, and gently close your eyes. And take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it for a moment. And fully exhale through your mouth. Again, take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it for a moment. And exhale fully through your mouth. And with each breath, feel your body starting to relax. Now imagine roots growing from the base of your spine or your feet, connecting you to the steady and supportive earth below. As you're feeling grounded, safe, and held. And now turn your attention inward. Acknowledge the grief you feel. No need to push it away. Just acknowledge the grief that you feel. It is a part of your experience, not something to be fixed, but to be heard. Now picture this grief as a wave. Let it rise and fall naturally. As it moves through you, remind yourself, this wave will pass. You are not your grief. You are the vessel that holds it. Again, picture this grief as a wave. Let it rise and fall naturally. As it moves through you, remind yourself, this wave will pass. You are not your grief. You are the vessel that holds it. Now, imagine holding your grief gently in your hands like a delicate object. Inhale deeply And as you exhale, visualize releasing it into the air, water, or light. Again, as you inhale deeply and as you exhale, visualize releasing this grief into the air, water, or light. And it doesn't mean forgetting. It's simply creating space for healing. Now, say to yourself, either aloud or in your mind, repeat these words after me. I release what I cannot control. I honor my feelings and welcome peace. Again, I release what I cannot control. I honor my feelings and welcome peace. I release what I cannot control. I honor my feelings and welcome peace. I release what I cannot control. I honor my feelings and welcome peace. I release what I cannot control. I honor my feelings and welcome peace. I hope today's episode has offered some comfort and insight as you navigate your own transitions. Remember, grief is absolutely not a sign of weakness. It is a testament to your humanity and your capacity to feel deeply. So I'll leave you with this beautiful quote by Lucille Ball. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. All right. I want to thank you for joining me on today's episode of my Feelings Over Tea podcast. I am your host, Dr. NaKaisha Tolbert Banks. Please like, share, and subscribe to this episode, the podcast. You can join us over on Instagram at My Feelings Over Tea. You can also follow me and check out the episodes on YouTube at First Lady Giggles. That's the number one, ST, Lady Giggles, over on YouTube. I want to thank you for being an amazing audience, listener. Take care of yourself, show yourself grace, and we'll meet here again soon to continue exploring life's journey and spilling all the tea about things mental health and life related. Until next time, stay kind to yourself and others. I look forward to sharing more with y'all soon. I'm out.